I think that Lila's passion for not only the land, but for the cultural institutions and for the people who live here make her just a huge community asset.
She's an environmentalist. She's a farmer, first and foremost, describes herself as a farmer.
So I grew up in the Berkshires on Highland Farm, and it was a very special place even back then. And my parents owned it and ran it, and my mother was of all breeds of cows, she was the breeder of dairy cows chosen one year. And so for a nice little old lady, she was really remarkable. And she never got dirty or sweat. That was something my father didn't think was okay. But I was really wanting to do it, and I wasn't allowed to because my brothers were allowed to do all that stuff, and girls weren't supposed to do it. And so I got a horse, and I was on the horse all over the property, and I became really excited about the environment and ecosystems.
The Mount was built in 1902 by Pulitzer Prize winner Edith Wharton and her husband Teddy. It's a beautiful house. It embodies many of the principles of architecture and design that she firmly believed in. She lived here, sadly, only 11 years because the marriage fell into disrepair and tensions became too great, and she moved to Paris and never returned. After that, the house went through a couple of private hands, and then it became the stable and dormitory for the Foxhollow School. And that's where Lila's sort of introduction to the property begins, because she was a very happy attendee of the school and spent, I believe, 4 very happy years here.
Edith Wharton invited my great-grandparents to the first lunch she ever had at the Mount. How cool is that? And you know, they were so stuffy and formal in those days, but that's a very significant part of the history of my family and the Mount. So I know the property also very intimately, very much like Highland. I rode all over that property, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful property, and we need to do a lot to try and get it all back together.
Lila was involved with the Mount from the very, very beginning. It was the late 70s. The Foxhollow School had gone bankrupt. The property had been purchased by a developer who had big plans to build condominiums and turn the main building into a French restaurant.
So I got connected with the National Trust people and their endangered property program, because the Mount was about to have all those condos that are now on the lee side of that property, shoulder to shoulder buildings, no space between, no big trees, nothing. Decimated, and they were going to look right down on top of the Mount. They were going to build right up to the edge. And so I convinced them, with the help of others, that it was an endangered property, and they bought the land, and we owed them $350,000, which we paid back over time, which is pretty darn good for an entity that had no help, anything. We were all volunteers at that point.
Yeah. Lila's significance in the efforts to preserve the Mount have been evident since the very beginning. It was her enthusiasm and her dedication that enabled the funds to be procured that allowed the Mount to be purchased in the first place. And she's leading us on our current great initiative, which involves the land as much as it does the house and the other buildings.
I love a challenge, and that was a real challenge.
Lila came to be involved with the Norman Rockwell Museum because of Molly Rockwell, Norman Rockwell's third wife. She and Molly knew each other through town and through St. Paul's Church.
My kids found the pages in the hymnal for Molly every Sunday, and so they asked me to be on the board of what was then not much of a thing other than, the corner house there. We had to move out of the center of Stockbridge because the kids were going to get run over, or the building was going to burn or get flooded or whatever. And Mr. Hicks from Albany, he broke the studio into 2 sections and put them on these big hydraulic flat beds. And I was on the school committee at the time, and I asked the superintendent if he would please allow all of the kids in the elementary school in Stockbridge Plain School out for the day to watch the museum's studio go down the main street. And I mean, how many kids are going to see something they know and are going to know for the rest of their lives go down the main street? And we had a ball. I mean, it was so much fun. And the kids really got it, that this was special. And they followed us almost all the way down to the Congregational Church. And it was very muddy, wet, horrible day. And Lori and I led a whole bunch of people down Main Street across Butler Bridge to the museum. And we plunked it down. It was very fun, very fun.
Of course, one of the great stories I remember about building the Norman Rockwell Museum was the tussle over the design of the stone walls of the museum. And our architect, our beloved architect, Robert A.M. Stern, who built such a beautiful building in the style of a town hall meeting, had specified some stonework in the building. The sample walls that he built were completely unacceptable to Lila. And she said, those are not Berkshire stone, and we're going to build this building with Berkshire stone.
I moved a lot of stones to the museum from our property on Monument Valley, and I did it with a pickup truck for a long time. And then I got Perry Patrica, who was on our board. He came with a big dump truck, and he had a big draught, and we loaded that up with stones, and they were all dirty because it was muddy and awful out. And the Stockbridge firemen, Peter Berinsky in particular, came and he washed the stones. You know, I mean, how cool is that? So it was a neighborhood, it was a bunch of people all working together.
Lila's strength and also her will and determination to ensure that this museum really represented the fabric of our, not just our local community, our local landscape and our grounds. And when you look at the stonework on our buildings today, you'll see how utterly beautiful it is, and that is Lila's field stone that anchors the walls of the Norman Rockwell Museum.
Sheep love hillsides and they like rocky ledges and so on. So this property is especially good for sheep. We have quite a lot of wetland. We have water in almost every pasture. I mean, it's just a dream.
Lila recognizes that the Berkshire's calling card is its natural beauty. It's the first thing you see, of course, but it goes much deeper. And it's to the way that our hills and valleys function together, to the way we live here. She recognizes that, she lives it, and she believes so fervently in protecting it and passing it along to the next generations that, you know, I wish we had a lot more people like Lila Berle.
When I think of Lila, I think about badass woman farmer.
I can't top that.
Come on.
That was awesome.
I'm so proud to have Burley Farm name on my menu, and every time she comes in, she comes back to the kitchen and she's so complimentary of the food and the way we put it together on the plate, and she's honored to have us using her family's products, and it's just a pleasure.
So the coolest thing about Lila and the people she touches, it's like she makes me want to be a better person.
Me too.
She's that kind of role model.
Well, Lila's one of the most important people in my life. Other than my mother, she's probably been more influential in my life than any other figure. She's an extraordinary mentor. She's a wonderful mother to her children. She believes in young people. She's all about the future, always, never looking back.
Life adds up. There's nothing that is ever kind of left out. It all adds up, and I'm still adding. You know, I'm still growing in a lot of ways.